Imagine waking up every day and feeling like you're dragging chains behind you. You smile, you work, you laugh, but somewhere deep inside, there's a weight, a shadow that follows you into every room. Most people don't even realize they're carrying it. And those who do, they often believe they deserve it. This is what a toxic past does. It convinces you that the pain is your identity. But what if that wasn't true? What if you could tear open the boundaries of who you think you are and step into a version of yourself that your past has never even met?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
We're not talking about positive thinking or surface-level healing. We're talking about something much deeper, something no one teaches in school, something rarely spoken about in therapy. The radical, philosophical, and psychological process of detaching your identity from your history. Because that's the first lie the toxic past tells you, that you are the sum total of what has been done to you. But you are not. You are the one who is aware of what has been done to you. You are the witness, not the wound. In the words of Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that for a second. How many of your choices are truly yours? How many of your relationships, your fears, your habits are actually echoes of something that happened years ago? Maybe a betrayal, a trauma, a parent who never saw you. Maybe a friend who turned into a stranger. And here's the hardest question you'll ask yourself in this journey. What part of me still benefits from holding on to the pain? You see, the toxic past doesn't just haunt you, it feeds you. It gives you a story. And as painful as that story is, it's familiar. There's a strange comfort in suffering we understand. It gives us a reason to stay small. It gives us an excuse not to risk love again, not to try, not to hope. But the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." And here's the paradox. Understanding the past is not the same as living in it. Too many of us confuse reflection with repetition. We think that by replaying the pain, we're healing. But we're not. We're just reinforcing the neural pathways of trauma. So how do we break free? First, you have to question the narrative. Every toxic past comes with a story. I'm not good enough. I'm broken. I'm too much. I'm not lovable. But where did that story really begin? Was it your voice or someone else's? When you were hurt, who told you it was your fault? When you were abandoned, who said it was because you weren't worth staying for? And more importantly, why did you believe them? This is where the psychological journey begins. You have to become a detective of your own mind. Start noticing your triggers. When someone ignores your message, does it feel like a small rejection or a devastating confirmation of unworthiness? When someone praises you, do you feel suspicious, like they must want something? These reactions aren't about the present moment. They're echoes, shadows on the wall of a cave you've been trapped in for years. Plato described this cave in his allegory of the cave. He said most people live their entire lives watching shadows, believing they are reality. But the truth, the painful, liberating truth is outside. And stepping outside the cave hurts. The light burns your eyes. The truth burns your ego. Because to truly break free from a toxic past, You have to admit something terrifying, that you've been wrong about yourself. That the story you've been telling, the one where you're unworthy, unlovable, cursed, is not true. And if it's not true, then who are you underneath it? Let me ask you something. If you had never been hurt, who would you be today? What would you believe about yourself, about love, about life? That question alone can shatter illusions, because it shows you the invisible prison walls. And when you see the walls, you can finally choose to walk through them. But awareness isn't enough. You need to create a new internal reality. This is where the psychological rewiring begins. It's not about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about giving it a new meaning. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." That's the power you have. You can't rewrite history, but you can rewrite the way it lives inside you. One powerful technique is narrative exposure therapy. Write down your past like a story, but this time, write it from the perspective of a survivor, not a victim. Highlight your resilience, your strength, your moments of courage. Yes, you were hurt, but you're still here. That alone is evidence of power. Every scar on your soul is proof that you lived through hell and came back with wisdom. Next, practice radical self-forgiveness. This is not about excusing those who hurt you. It's about releasing yourself from the shame that clings to their actions. Many people carry guilt for things that were never their fault. That's the trick of the toxic past. It makes you the villain in your own story. But guilt is only useful if it leads to growth. If it leads to paralysis, it's poison. So speak to yourself as you would to a child who has been hurt, with compassion, with gentleness, with truth. And here's a secret no one talks about. Sometimes, the final stage of healing is grief. Not grief for what happened, but grief for the person you could have been if it hadn't. That version of you, the innocent, unscarred, joyful version, deserves to be mourned. But you also get to choose who you become now. And that version can be even more beautiful, because they will have depth. They will have empathy. They will have earned their peace. So I'll ask you again, if you had never been hurt, who would you be? And now I'll ask something even deeper. Can you become that person anyway? That's the real challenge. That's the journey. We'll walk backward through the fire of your memory and come out the other side, not just unburned, but reformed. Stronger, softer, wiser, and free. How to break free from a toxic past. No one teaches this. Part 2, 1,200 words. If you're still here, it means something inside you is awakening. A part of you is beginning to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That's not a small thing. That's a revolution. Because most people will never take this journey. They'll keep repeating the same patterns, blaming the same people, carrying the same pain like a badge of honor. But not you. You're here because you're ready to break the cycle. And to do that, we have to go deeper into the psychological architecture of the mind, into the spiritual silence beneath the noise. One of the most powerful realizations in both psychology and philosophy is that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that notices them. This is not just a nice idea, it's a fundamental shift in identity. Imagine standing on a bridge, watching a river flow beneath you. The river is your thoughts, but you are not the river. You are the one watching. When we confuse ourselves with our thoughts, especially the negative ones born from trauma, we become prisoners to them. But when we realize we can observe without attaching, we start to reclaim our freedom. Destructive thoughts are often inherited. You didn't choose to believe you were unworthy, you were taught it. Maybe not through words, but through silence, through neglect, through the absence of love. Children don't interpret neglect as they couldn't love me. They interpret it as I'm not lovable. That belief becomes a core wound, and it sits in your subconscious like a virus in the system. Years later, it shows up in your relationships. You chase people who don't choose you. You fear intimacy. You sabotage happiness. All because a child inside you still believes something that was never true. This is where inner child work becomes essential. And no, it's not some mystical idea. It's grounded in neuroscience and emotional psychology. The brain stores emotional memories in the limbic system, and unless those memories are processed, they keep firing like they're still present. So when you get triggered, it's not the adult you reacting, it's the child. And that child doesn't need discipline. It needs to be seen, heard, held. The philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "One of the most generous things we can do is to listen to the child inside another person." But before you can do that for others, you must do it for yourself. So how do we speak to the inner child? Not with criticism, not with logic, but with presence. Sit still, breathe. Close your eyes and imagine the younger version of yourself, maybe at age 5, 10, 13. Picture their face, their eyes. Ask them what they needed that they didn't get. Ask them what they feared. Then tell them the truth. You are safe now. You are enough. It was never your fault. This may sound simple, but the subconscious does not differentiate between imagination and reality. These words, felt deeply, can begin to rewire your nervous system. But words alone are not enough. We must act differently. Because healing is not just about what we feel, it's about what we do. Every time you choose to set a boundary, you're telling your inner child, "I will protect you now." Every time you walk away from someone who triggers your old wounds, you're saying, "I choose peace over familiarity." And every time you forgive yourself for falling back into old patterns, you're healing shame with compassion. At this point in the journey, something unexpected might happen. You may start to feel angry, not just at others, but at yourself, for staying too long, for not speaking up, for betraying your own heart. Let that anger rise. It's not wrong, it's sacred. Anger is the energy of boundaries. It's the fire that burns away submission. Don't suppress it. Feel it fully, then channel it into clarity, into strength, into the decision to never again abandon yourself for the comfort of the familiar. But here's where we must pause and ask a terrifying question: who am I without my pain? This question shakes people, because when you've built your identity around survival, healing feels like death. The old you begins to wither. The stories you used to tell no longer fit. The people who once felt familiar now feel foreign. This is the shedding process, and it's lonely. But wisdom comes in solitude. Friedrich Nietzsche has said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Find your why. Your reason for healing must be bigger than your reason for staying broken. Here's a practical exercise. Write down every belief you hold about yourself that was born from pain. I'm not worthy unless I'm useful. Love always ends. I can't trust people. Now, challenge each one. Ask, is this belief absolutely true? Where did I learn it? What would my life look like if I didn't believe it? This is cognitive restructuring. It's one of the most powerful tools in psychology. Because beliefs shape perception, and perception shapes reality. Now let's talk about trauma memory. One of the reasons we stay stuck in the past is because the brain doesn't process emotional trauma like normal memory. It gets stuck in the body. That's why you feel anxiety without reason, tension in your chest, a lump in your throat when someone raises their voice. These are somatic memories. They can't be healed through thought alone. You must bring the body into the healing process. Practices like breath work, yoga, MDR, and trauma-informed movement are not luxuries, they're medicine. They speak the language of the body. And when the body feels safe, the mind begins to relax. Here's something else no one teaches. Sometimes, healing means letting go of the need for closure. You may never get the apology. You may never understand why they did what they did. But closure is not something they give you. It's something you give yourself. It's the moment you say, I don't need them to make it right for me to move forward. That's real power. That's freedom. The philosopher Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your power lies in your response. And as we start to step into that power, something miraculous begins to happen. You stop chasing people. You stop begging the past to love you differently. You stop trying to prove your worth, because you start to know your worth, not intellectually, but in your bones. You walk differently. You speak differently. You stop performing and start being. And people notice. Some will be drawn to this new you. Others will feel threatened. Let them go. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into this new chapter. So, I want to leave you with a question, one that very few dare to ask themselves. What if the version of you you're afraid to become is the real you? The one who's not afraid to speak truth. The one who doesn't seek permission to exist. The one who chooses peace over people-pleasing. What if your toxic past was not a life sentence, but a doorway? What if your pain was the initiation into your power? Because here's what no one teaches. Breaking free from a toxic past isn't just about healing. It's about rebirth. It's about remembering the truth that was buried underneath the pain. And that truth, once found, will never leave you again. If you've made it this far, something irreversible has already begun inside you. You've looked your past in the eye. You've questioned the story you were taught to tell yourself. You've grieved, you've raged, you've remembered. And now comes the most sacred part of all the rebuilding. Not of the old self, but of the true self. The self that has always been waiting beneath the ruins. This is where philosophy meets psychology, where insight becomes action, and where the wounds become wisdom. To truly break free from a toxic past, you must begin living from a new center. One not built on fear or survival, but on intention. You are not here to repeat your pain. You are here to transcend it. And this is the final test. Can you build a life that no longer reflects where you've been, but where you are becoming? Most people try to heal while staying in the same environment, the same relationships, the same identity. And they wonder why nothing changes. You cannot become new while holding on to the old. It's time now to ask yourself one of the deepest questions on this journey. What do I owe myself that I've been giving to everyone else? Is it time? Is it truth? Is it tenderness? Because the toxic past often teaches us to abandon ourselves, to make everyone else comfortable while we suffer in silence. But healing demands the opposite. It requires radical self-loyalty, a commitment to your own peace that is non-negotiable. That means saying no more often. That means being misunderstood. That means disappointing people who benefited from your silence. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. But your thoughts reflect the environment you feed them in. So look around you. What are you consuming? Who are you surrounded by? What voices echo in your mind when you're alone? Healing is not just about processing the past, it's about protecting your present. You can't flourish in soil poisoned by old patterns. So let this be your vow, to no longer water the weeds just because they're familiar. At this stage, you may start feeling moments of peace that confuse you. You'll wake up one morning and realize you no longer ache for the approval of those who hurt you. You'll go a whole day without replaying the old memories. You'll laugh deeply from your belly and feel guilty for a second because joy feels unfamiliar. That's how you know you're healing. When joy feels like a foreign language, but you start to speak it anyway. But don't be surprised if the past tries to pull you back. This is what psychologists call the extinction burst. When you begin to change a long-standing pattern, the old behavior often intensifies one last time before it dies. The abuser may return. The self-doubt may scream louder. The fear may rise. Don't mistake this for failure. It's the storm before the clearing. Stay the course. Trust the process. You are not falling back, you are being tested. And here's something almost no one understands. Breaking free from the toxic past isn't only personal. It's ancestral. You're not just healing yourself. You're healing generations before you who didn't have the tools, the language, or the freedom to do what you're doing now. You're breaking generational curses. You're ending patterns of silence, codependency, abuse, and shame. You are the first link in a new chain, and that is holy work. But with this new identity comes a new responsibility. You must now become a guardian of your own inner world. Just like a temple, your soul must be protected. That means regular self-check-ins. That means journaling when your thoughts get tangled. That means choosing friends who reflect your values, not your traumas. That means pausing when you feel triggered and asking, is this a memory or is this now? You must become fiercely conscious because the unconscious mind loves to recycle the familiar. The truth is, most people relapse into their toxic past because they don't prepare for what comes after healing. They think freedom is the end, but freedom is the beginning of conscious living, of boundaries, of saying yes only when you mean it, of creating rather than surviving. And this is where you begin to realize something profound. Your pain was never just pain. It was a portal, a curriculum, an initiation into the deepest truths of life. Consider this. What if your entire toxic past was preparing you for a mission? What if your suffering gave you the empathy to touch others in ways no one else can? What if your scars made you fluent in the language of healing? There's a term in Japanese culture called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The idea is that the object becomes more beautiful not despite its breaking, but because of it. That's you. Your cracks are where the light enters. But don't rush to turn your pain into purpose. Let your healing be enough for now. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is rest. To sit in your newness and breathe. Aim to enjoy a day without drama. A moment without memory. A future that feels open. That is the reward. Not fame. Not applause, but peace. The kind of peace that no one gave you but that you gave yourself. And eventually, something even more powerful happens. You begin to thank your past, not because it was right, not because it was fair, but because it woke you up, because it forced you to become conscious. Because without it, you would still be asleep in someone else's story. This is the full circle. This is freedom, not forgetting the past, but being unbound by it. As the Tao Te Ching says, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. So let me ask you one final question. Are you willing to live a life your past never prepared you for? A life where you are no longer a victim of your story, but the author of a new one. A life where love doesn't hurt, peace is not a stranger, and joy is not a betrayal of your pain, but a celebration of your survival. This is not just a video, this is a mirror. And in this mirror, you are not seeing who you were. You are seeing who you are becoming. Someone unshaken. Someone kind, someone powerful. Not because they never broke, but because they did and chose to rise anyway. That is the essence of transformation. That is the secret no one teaches. That is how you break free from a toxic past. Now, it's your turn to live.